Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. My name is Bhattu Sarika and I am working at BAV, a unit of RAY. RAY is an organization which is completely based on a cybersecurity and BAV, a unit of RAY. Here we provide all the corporate trainings on many technologies and especially cybersecurity. So today we are presenting the art of hacking, which is organized by BAV. This webinar is going to prepare you for an exciting and rewarding career in cybersecurity field. So now I'm going to introduce our special speaker, a strong and hardworking lady, a shine to our evening, Miss Shruti Rupa Banerjee. She is currently working under WAF Research and at Qualys. And I'm glad to inform you all that she is the lead for Breaking Barriers Women in Cybersecurity, and she has been a mentor to Cyber Preserve community and has a speaker in various conferences like Besides 2019, etc. I would like to request everyone during this session, please mute your mics. We will also provide a time for question and answers. You can ask questions directly in the live session itself, or you can raise your questions in chat box. So now I would like to hand over this session. Hello?
Hello. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, there was some network issue. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sarika, for the wonderful introduction. I'll just share my screen and let me know if it is visible.
Yes, Shruti, it is visible.
Okay, cool. So let's get started then. So, as Sarika already said, and we know that today's topic is the art of hacking. So you don't have to think of it like as a we are going to have a very core technical topic. We are going to talk about what it is all about, what do we do in general, but it is more about some other things that we need to be taking care of before starting our career into this field, or maybe you're already into this field, then what are certain things that you should be keeping in your mind. So that is what we will be talking about today. So, as Sarika has already introduced me, so I'll just give a very short intro. I work at Qualys under WAF Research. I'm a mentor at Cyber Preserve and a lead in Breaking Barriers Lean in Circle. I have been a trainer at various conferences and I blog regularly at shrutirupa.me. And I am also linked with various communities and have been leads at various communities previously, like for InfoSec Girls, Women Who Code. So today's agenda will be like what is hacking. You might be thinking that if more, I'm expecting a lot of you to be beginners. If you are not, then it's completely okay, because today we are going to talk about the basics, what we should be taking care of, which we should be knowing about hacking, what it is all about. Is it the way, is it exactly the way they're shown in the movies, and how impressive it looks from the outside world, right? From a third person's view, like what do we say, that a grass is greener, is always greener on the other side. The term hacking sounds so fun and so different, sounds so cool that everybody wants to do something related to hacking or be a hacker just because it sounds cool. But it is more than that. So today we will be talking about all these scenarios. Apart from that, if some of you are already into this field, there are few questions that I'll be answering that you might have also come across. So today's agenda is, as I said, what is hacking, what happens when an application is hacked, what are the procedures that are followed next, and where do we come into picture. So, talking about hackers, we have always heard that this kind of hacker or this hacker community has stolen this data and have shared this data somewhere, or have hacked this organizations. So, if you're talking about hacking and if we want to become a hacker, then who are we? What kind of hacker are we? Isn't it an illegal thing that we are doing? Then our picture, like where do we come into this picture? Sorry. So the motive over here for this presentation specially is that whenever we are doing any hacking kind of stuff. Now I'll shift this word. I'll not use the term for hacking right now, but I'll use the word as a security task, or for an individual who is related to this domain as a security professional or a security researcher. So the people who are into security or who wants to do something in this field, in the security field, are not aware of the responsibility that they are having or that they are going to get. So hacking does not always mean that you are given a system, you are given an application, you are just hacking it. No, it doesn't happen that way. Like just touching an application does not mean you're able to hack it, the way they have shown previously in the movies. But it does not happen like that. It requires a lot of, requires a sense of responsibility that people, especially the beginners, are unaware of. After few years of experience, you start understanding, you start realizing after exploring. But as a beginner, it is very interesting to, check all the application, find if there is anything in the application, hack everything. This is a kind of fun or cool thing that looks like for beginners especially. The next motive is that our approach is towards finding, identifying a vulnerability. So what is a vulnerability? It is a kind of weakness or some kind of flaw that we find in an application. It can be any kind of application, anything, any application, any software that is running with the help of code is hackable. Nothing is 100% secure. Today you can say that Google is secure, nothing is happening over there. It is not totally true. There are some flaws that may get exploited later on. So nothing is 100% secure. So even though if an application is providing all kind of security that it can, you have to be aware as well. You have to take certain steps, some precautions before using that application, while using that application, and once the application gets hacked, say, after that what you can do, what that can be done. This is not just for an individual, this is specially for organizations, and this is for especially for the individuals who want to start their career into this field. They have to understand these basic things which are required. So the main motive is not to just prevent the attack, but we have to make sure that we catch the attacker. Let me put it in this way: that what happens that whenever we know that if there is an organization which got hacked, so we have to make sure that we take care, we take all the necessary steps that can be done for the as a response steps, like after something happens to an application, what are the next steps to be done to prevent anything else that can happen, even before catching the attacker, even before doing anything related to the attacker. Sorry, initially I just got confused with what I was saying. So what we want to say over here is, even before, when you are trying to find who has done the attack, who has done this, who is really responsible for this kind of activity, we have to make sure that if an attack is done, say, what can be done next, and if nothing is done, then what are the steps that to be done to prevent the attack. So these are some of the things that have to be taken care of, and this is the main motive behind this session, behind today's session. And your takeaways from this session will be that you will understand a different kind of path that you can look forward to. What I mean to say over here is, initially it is quite easy to understand that you want to get into this hacking field, you want to get into this security field. Initially you were just thinking about the application or the kind of domain you are interested in. Maybe you are interested in web applications, maybe you are interested in mobile applications. But after today's session, you'll understand that whichever domain you choose, there is some sense of responsibility that you have to have, the things that you have to keep in mind before playing with an application, before scanning an application, before testing an application. After today's session, you will understand what happens in a security industry and how complicated. It is not that complicated though, but it is not a very easy thing to do. It requires a lot of skills, it requires a lot of knowledge, it requires a lot of technical aspects that you have to take care of your surroundings as well. So these are certain things. You're not just given an application and you're not just testing it. You are actually taking care of everything that is related to it. Even you're thinking of the organization. Even when you are testing an application, you are checking an application, you are looking at the business logic flaws as well. So all these things come into the picture. And also, if you are a developer who wants to have all the skills, like you want to have both the skills of development and security, so you'll understand what you have to deal with while developing the application. So the first thing is that from here, from these takeaways, it might sound like we are getting too technical, but don't worry, we are not getting into any technical aspect, but we'll be talking about such things that will give you a clear vision on how to do the things, how to do a testing. You will understand the technical aspect while running the application or while testing the application or while you'll be reading all those things. Today you will understand why you are doing it, what is the vision behind doing it, what is the goal behind doing it. So you'll be understanding that, and this will help you in understanding or comprehending the stuffs even more easily later. So let's get started. Cool. So before understanding what is hacking, let's understand what hacking is not. So anybody can answer me, like, what do you think? What hacking is not? What is not hacking? What do we do? What are the certain things that we sometimes do, but that is not called hacking? Can anyone say? It can be anything. Okay, cool. So before that, let us understand what hacking is not. Getting access to an account whose credentials are already given to you. So sometimes I have heard script kiddies. Those are the people who don't know anything about it, but they'll still just run the program from the net, and they'll think themselves. They will think of themselves as hackers. So what happens? Sometimes we already have the access. I'll give you a better idea. Like what happens that there is a set of passwords that have been given to everyone in a closed group. Each and everyone is having a similar kind of password, and somehow you are just able to brute force or just run a tool to find the password for any user A. But you are all in a closed group and the password is kind of similar. It can be guessable or maybe completely similar. So that can't be considered as hacking, because somewhere or other, and if your passwords are supposed to be kind of similar, then they don't expect any kind of privacy unless you are asked to change the password and make sure that your privacy is maintained. Unless you are able to bypass these things, that is not called hacking. You're not doing anything different over there. So if the credentials are somewhere are provided by people, then that is not hacking. Okay, if you have found the credentials through some kind of information gathering, then that can be considered as hacking. So from information gathering, there is one very important point that I missed before. Like when we were talking about that our main intention is to prevent the attack even before finding who the attacker is. Right. So in that scenario, when we are trying to prevent the attack, there's another scenario when you're trying to action, and when you're trying to do some investigation. So the first case where you are trying to prevent the attack, in that case also the investigation part might come into picture. But we are taking these three as three separate cases. So in all these three cases, information gathering, enumeration is a very big part. When you find all the details and all information about an application, you're halfway done. Suppose if you're testing an application, suppose you're testing a web application, when you come to know about what kind of database it is using, what kind of backend language it is using, what is the version they are using, are they using any other kind of frameworks, is there any kind of template, are they using Python, are they using PHP? When you come to know about all these kind of information, what kind of cloud services are they using, what are the login pages that they are having, are they using any CMSs, any kind of frameworks, when you find answer to a lot of these questions, you're halfway done. This is called enumeration, information gathering, where you are trying to find information about the application. Apart from that, you're also trying to find out information about what kind of users are there, who are the users, can we find any username, can we guess any username. Once you find the username, sometimes it is very easy to guess their passwords as well. At this point, if you're able to guess the password, that can be termed as hacking. So that is one basic difference. Even in investigation, when or if there is an attack that has happened in an application, so what can happen is you have to figure out what has happened before. You will look at the logs, you will see what the application is, you will check what the version is. Even at that point of time, you need to know all those versions. That will be quite helpful to understand if the attacker has attacked you using any technical flaws related to the version. This is one of the example. Sorry, if anybody was asking any question. Okay. So for all these things, information gathering is the core thing that you need to do. Even for investigation, even for finding a vulnerability, for anything. This is the core thing. If you have gathered enough information, if you have enumerated well, you're halfway done. That is the first step towards hacking. Today we are not talking about the stages of hacking, but this is one of the steps that you all should be knowing about, that everyone should be knowing about. So getting back to the slide, what hacking is not is getting access to an account whose credentials are already given to you. Spamming, when you're continuously spamming someone with messages, that is not hacking, you're just disturbing someone. Why am I putting all these terminologies over here? Because I have heard people using these words as hacking. So just to be sure that we are all on the same page, I'm mentioning all these things. Just running tools without knowing anything about the application or the tools themselves, that is not hacking. You are just a script kiddie then. Who are script kiddie? Who just run the tools, they found an application, they just run the scanner and they find a vulnerability, suppose, but they're not aware of what kind of vulnerabilities, what is happening. They don't know what has happened before. They have just simply run the tool, they simply found something. It doesn't happen that way. Of course, you found something, and these tools are meant to do something. But when are these tools required? How do we use these tools? Of course, the script kiddie has used wisely, very properly, but the person is not aware of what is it. Like live overflows, videos, if you have ever seen, he always says that don't be a script kiddie. Understand, running a tool is not a bad thing. You should run a tool because it eases your task. But how, when, where, which kind of tool? You have to make sure, right? Even now, the big applications, the big organizations, whenever they launch their application, you cannot run any random scanner against their application. You'll get blocked, right? So you have to take care of all these things. If you want to get into this field, you have to think about all these things. If something like this happens, what can be done? What can the alternative approach be? And the last thing is copy paste. Again, if you're just copying and pasting some payloads, what do I mean by payloads? If you're not aware, I'm just expecting a lot of beginners from the audience. So if you are just so what a payload means is a kind of script or a small piece of code that you sometimes use against an application to find the vulnerability or check if it is actually vulnerable to that particular risk or bug. So copying and pasting those codes, those pieces of code without knowing what they do, how are they doing, is not hacking. So what do we achieve? So these are certain things that do come under the process of hacking, but it is not. Simply doing all these things, do not consider them as hacking. So what hacking is? So even though you're using the tools, using, as I said, usage of tools is not wrong, but you need to understand what you're doing. You have to be full responsible of what you are doing. You have to take the responsibility of the things that you are doing, the applications that you are running, the kind of codes that you will be running against those applications. So whenever you are able to compromise an application, it is called hacking. How are you able to compromise? Through technical flaws, it is possible. If there is any technical flaw, what do I mean by technical flaw? Every application is made up of a piece of code. If you are able to find some bug within the code, any functionality, when the functionalities are nothing but just pieces of code, so if you are able to find any vulnerability, if you're able to find any flaw within those codes, they are the technical flaws over there. Again, if you are able to take an unauthorized access to the account, how are you able to do it? Through technical flaw, one possibility that we have. Another, we can have malware like viruses. Even the viruses, even the malware, each kind of malware, they depend a lot on the kind of technical flaws. Like if we talk about WannaCry, I guess it was dependent on a very it was dependent on, I guess, a service SMB, the port which was open for this. So they were dependent on these kinds of services, Eternal Blue, as I'm talking about WannaCry, these kinds of attacks, these kinds of technical flaws, sorry, that they were dependent on to attack the system. So this is how malwares also work. Then we have social engineering. What do we do in social engineering? We try to manipulate the it is more user interaction, human interaction kind of thing. So what happens is we are trying to find out the password. We are trying to manipulate the user while talking to them, or maybe by sending a mail, making them click on certain links to find their password. So these are some ways how hacking happen, where even a bad hacker, good hacker, no matter what, they're knowing what they do. They know what they're doing. Sorry, they're aware of what they're doing. Even a good hacker or a bad hacker, they're responsible. The bad ones are responsible in a very different way. The good ones are responsible in a different way. They are responsible. And what kind of responsibility are we talking about today? Is a good ones. We are talking about the other kind of hacking that we'll be talking about in the next slide. So the third one is the unauthorized access that can happen through a vulnerability, as we discussed, through using a malware or social engineering. So this is what hacking is.
Shruti,
Yeah,
sorry
yeah.
for the interruption, but your screen is not visible.
Screen is not visible. Wait.
Yes.
Is it visible now?
Yeah, it is visible now.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know.
Thank you.
Okay. So quickly, I'll just uh, tell I don't know if you were able to see the slide. If you are not, I'll just tell you that everything is written in the slide. So act of compromising the devices or the applications is hacking. You try to gain unauthorized access. You try different ways to gain the unauthorized access, sorry, by using a malware or social engineering or finding a technical flaws. And there's a sense of, and the person who is doing is knowing what they're doing. They're just not running a piece of code and just finding a hack. Even if they're able to do it, they won't know what to do next. So a proper hacker is someone who is aware of what is happening. They know what the surrounding is. So types of hackers. Why are we talking about hackers? Because we use a lot of time this word, this hacking word, the hacker word, and we need to understand that if, however cool it sounds, hacking is illegal. So what are we doing? Who are we? What are we doing as a professionals over here? We are coming under ethical hacking. So we already have the permission to run some scripts, to analyze some applications, to find the vulnerability, and let the application owners know that these are the flaws that you are having. Please make sure that you mitigate them before going public with the application. Sorry. So this is something that the ethical hackers do. Hacking itself, the word is very illegal, so we use ethical hacking at that point of time, and the individuals who are performing the art of hacking are the hackers. So there are a number of hackers, number of types of hackers, like black hat, white hat, gray hat, green hat, blue hat, and red hat. We don't have to get into the details, but for now, let us understand who are we, what are we doing, and what are our intention. Sorry. So we are the white hat hackers, and we are using these skills to protect the applications. So as I said, how are we protecting the application? We're using the same skill set that the malicious. We are also having the same technical knowledge. It completely depends from an individual to individual, though. But you are having the technical skills to find a vulnerability in an application. But after finding it, you do not exploit it, or maybe you try to exploit it further to check to what extent the application is at risk, and then you make a report out of it and let the application owner know about it. What is the thing about a white hat hacker? What is so ethical about it? First of all, you take permission, or you have the permission to do all these things. Second, suppose you are just using an application and somehow you found a vulnerability in that application. So you being a responsible individual, you report it to the organization through emails or any other professional handles that they're having. So you report them, and you take a follow up in a while to know that if they have mitigated. Now it depends upon the organization how they will how they will give you, like sometimes the organizations give a bounty of some amount, or sometimes they put you in their list, some hall of fame list, that these are the security researchers who helped us protect our application. So that is the company's way. Some of the companies, like you must have heard about bug bounty hunters, sorry. So those bug bounty hunters or the bug bounty programs that they're having, they have already listed out the organizations and the scope that you can scope. By scope, what do I mean is the URL or the subdomains that you are allowed to test. So they have already mentioned, so you already have the permission. So you create an account over there and you start testing. They already mentioned that what kind of usernames that you can use, the email ID should be in this way, what kind of how the report has to be made. They mention everything. If you're finding a high risk uh, vulnerability, then what kind of what how much money will they pay you. So these are the things that are there. So that is how that is how white hat hackers work on it, and that is how we make it ethical. How are we making it ethical? By helping the organization protect their application before it is getting hacked by any malicious user. So again, this is a huge responsibility. Your skills that you're having can reduce the risk of an application from getting hacked. Of course, an organization will never be 100% secure. An application is never secure. but you're somewhere reducing the risk. Being a software security professional, you are helping that organization. You are not only helping them with the kind of vulnerabilities they might be vulnerable to, you're also letting them know the prevention techniques. You're also letting them know what to do if hack happens in that case, and if the hack has not happened, then what they should be doing. So this is a huge responsibility and powerful thing to have, where you are actually securing an application through your skills. But now, since we spoke about what the hackers do, what keeps on happening, as I said, nothing is 100% secure, but we still get hacked. So this is a big thing. It is a sense of, again, huge responsibility, even after taking all the precautions, everything. If we are still getting hacked, then we have to find the next steps to be done. So it's a kind of incident response. An incident has happened. What is the way? What are the ways you'll respond to it? What the organization should be doing in that case? We are not talking about what should be done, but these are the things that should be taken care of. But why do we still get hacked? Because nothing is 100% secure. Sometimes we take all the precautions, but they are not up to the mark, because we have heard about 0 days. What are 0 days? They are some new kind of vulnerabilities that occur in an application. So we are not always aware of what kind of attack will come next. Sometimes the malicious user already have the kind of vulnerability that a particular application is vulnerable to, and they just attack it at once. Like, you must have heard of the solar wind attack, where they use the supply chain process to attack, or the recent one, Kaseya. Then we had the Pegasus. All, of course, they were all related to the malware. And for solar winds, they use the supply chain process. Supply chain process. So these are all possible. They have been planning all these things. A group of attackers, they plan the things since a long time, so that they can hack it in a very different way. They have everything pre-planned, and when they hack, they just hack it in a huge way that a lot of organizations get affected. So what happens in that way, in because any can get hacked. So in that way, we have to make sure that you're taking all the precautions in case if anything like this happens. And as I mentioned, that we have to be ready with the solutions in case it gets compromised. So these were some of the basic things that somewhere or other we were aware of, like what used to happen. But let us understand, how do they show in a movie? I hope you have not watched this movie, and if you have, then I'm really sorry for getting traumatized. Because in this movie, how they had shown that the guy would just touch a mobile phone and would just do something, like he won't even connect it to, he won't even check if the phone is connected to an internet or the Wi-Fi. Are they within the same network? He won't check anything. He would just take the phone, click on something, and it get hacked. It is possible to hack through a mobile phone. It is possible to hack a mobile phone, but before that, you have to make sure that you're running something within it. You have to open some of the applications, some of the services. You have to agree to have access to some of the APK files that are not from the Play Store. This is one of the way. It is not like you cannot hack it, but the way they have shown it, it does not happen that way. Like, a hacker, the hackers are not like they just touch an application, or they just touch a laptop and it gets hacked. It is never like that. But how does it happen in a real world? Of course, there are movies that which have shown what actually happens. So this is one of the way how it happens. This is just a pictorial way. Not every time it happens like this. If you have watched Mr. Robot, you'll understand how they have actually used. They use the ways how it happens, how they have set up everything. They have pre-planned everything to hack the organization. They have used everything, starting from a technical flaw to social engineering to a malware. All these things that we were talking about. And the first and the most important thing that we spoke about was information gathering. They were having enough information about the organization before hacking them. So anybody has any question? Okay, cool. So we'll start. So for any application, even for like Pegasus kind of attack or any kind of attack, the first thing is, of course, information gathering that has to be done. Basic needs an application. They need a platform. They need an application where they can perform an attack. And the next thing is finding an endpoint or an input point. Unless you can have some kind of user interaction or there is some kind of endpoint with which a user can play with, it becomes kind of difficult. That endpoint is to be manipulated by the user. Any kind of attack that is happening, like the one that you mentioned about Pegasus, the one attack that we talked about, WannaCry. Apart from these malware-based attacks, there are other attacks like cross-site scripting or SQL injection. We're not talking about the technical stuffs right now, but all these kinds of attacks are vulnerable. These kinds of attacks look for an endpoint. They look for one point with which some payloads can be manipulated, the script can be manipulated. Now you have to figure out like what kind of input point is it, and what kind of scripts, what kind of input is it taking, and how it can be manipulated. So for database related kind of issues, for database related kind of vulnerabilities, it would try to manipulate it some queries which are related to databases. For JavaScript related bugs, it will try to manipulate it JavaScript based vulnerabilities. For a malware, suppose if a malware is for Windows, or suppose Pegasus, it is for the Android or iOS or for any kind of mobile phone, say. So it will look for the endpoint through which it can enter, and it will look for the kind of manipulation that can be done from there. Every kind of attack is based on one single endpoint. Of course, there can be multiple, that I'm talking about the minimal that we need to have. So one particular endpoint that we may have, and how we can manipulate it. When you understand this basic thing, one basic thing, you will see that every attack works in a similar way. The name completely depends, or the name differs on the basis of what are they exploiting, or what kind of applications, or what is the scope of exploitation. For example, if you are exploiting, or if you have found an endpoint which is manipulating the JavaScript based codes, then it can be a client side vulnerability. And if it is JavaScript, then we can call it cross-site scripting, say. Suppose if you are able to do some manipulation with the backend queries, database queries, then it can be SQL injection. It can be considered as an injection, which is called SQL injection. But while manipulating or while playing with it, you come to know that they're using some other kind of queries. Maybe that is NoSQL. Then that is NoSQL injections. While writing, when you have found an endpoint, you try to write some kind of templates. You try to write some codes that are used for templates like Django, or I don't remember a lot of templates right now. So suppose for we have Django. So if you're writing those templates and somewhere it is getting executed, or the server is behaving in a weird way, then you can understand that this may be template injection. If you're using a URL and using that URL something is happening, then the bug will be related to some kind of URL based attacks. So the attacks name differ because of the payloads that you're putting, because of the application it is dependent on, because of the scope it is dependent on. Otherwise, you are performing the same things over there. You are doing information gathering, you are doing enumeration, and then you are finding an endpoint, and you are then just checking if it is, you're just trying to manipulate, play with the endpoint. Now, how do you do this? Like for a smaller application, it is totally fine. You're doing it manually. So this is where your tools come into picture. The scanners come into picture. The scanners will find all those endpoints and they will try with different kind of payloads or different kind of inputs to see what kind of vulnerability it might be having, or what kind applications they're using. Sometimes you're not able to find any vulnerability, but you get some information related to the server, the version that they're using, the cloud services that they're dependent on. So this is why these are the basic things, and it is common for any kind of attack. Unless you have all these things, you cannot perform any attack. If you don't have an endpoint, if you don't find any way to interact or manipulate the application, how will you perform the next steps, right? So let's talk real about it. The very basic question that we are always asked, if you're a security professional, somewhere or other, you must have heard these kind of questions. Is it possible to hack an FP account, Insta, Twitter, WhatsApp? Yes, it is very possible. So sometimes what happens, some of our friends or relatives or anyone, they would just ask you that, can you just hack this Insta account? Or can you hack this Facebook account? This is very much possible, but is it ethical? No, especially if it is somebody else's account. It is very unethical, it is illegal. These are something that you should not be doing. We already spoke about the point of responsibility, the sense of responsibility that everyone should be having. It is possible to do all those things, but you should not be doing unless you have permission. And permission from whom? I don't think not just the account owner, but if you're trying to find a very technical flaw in an application, then you need to have some permission from the application owner as well. So how do you hack those accounts? By finding sometimes technical flaws. Can escalate your privileges. What do I mean by escalating your privileges? Is there are two kinds of privilege escalation that may happen. One is horizontal and another is vertical. So if I am an admin and you are a normal user, and if you being a normal user are able to get access to my account or my privileges, then that is vertical. You are elevating your privileges from a lower access to a higher one. But for horizontal, if we both are the users, we are having similar kind of access, but somehow I'm able to get access to your account, then that is horizontal privilege escalation. So using a technical flaw, you can do that. Again, you can use social engineering. What do we know by social engineering? As I explained before, you can send an email, you can call them, you can try to manipulate them to find the password. Through email, you can send malicious links, use malwares. These are some common ways. It's not like there are no other ways present, but these are the very common ways that are used. But it takes a lot of time. So if you're going to find a technical flaw in a very huge application, say Facebook, it will take a lot of time. You have to understand how is it working. Sometimes by fluke, you find a bug. It does happen. It happens. I'm not talking about those times. If you're a very good security researcher, you're scanning or you're just looking at it thoroughly, you're doing something, you must have just observed something different in there and you just started testing it. That is a different scenario. But if you want to find a technical flaw in an application, a huge application, it will take a lot of time. Even for social engineering, even for performing social engineering, it takes time. For any kind of attack, ethical, unethical, too. information. You have to gather information about it, right? And while gathering information, you find a lot of stuffs about it. With social engineering, you have to figure out like who are they, where do they go, who are they dependent on, what kind of passwords they might be having, what kind of emails do they open. If I send them these kind of emails, will they open it? If they open, will they be clicking on the links that I have sent? So you have to be aware of all these questions. For malwares, will they be clicking on the malwares? Will they be installing? Are they using Windows? Should we be making a Windows based malware or a Linux based malware? It totally depends. So it takes a lot of time. It's not like you cannot hack it, but it is unethical. And second, if you want to do it, it will take a lot of time. Of course, if you want to do it, you need to have the required permissions. It's not feel doing it and you start doing it. It is wrong unless you have a permission. Then what do we do when we find such a flaw? What do we do? Hack the organization? Again, we spoke about the kind of responsibilities that we are having. So we don't do that. So suppose if we found some kind of flaws, we do not hack the organization. We report to the organization. We explain. What do? We write a mail. We write the subject as some security flaw found in your application, and then you draft a mail where you write about that. See, I found these kind of vulnerabilities, and I think this is suspicious. And suppose the first step, instead of finding a flaw, you found something suspicious, so you would just write a mail that you saw something suspicious, so you would like to talk to the organization security team, and if they give you the permission to check further, you can ask them about it. And if they say no, then no need, you have already let them know about the suspicious behavior. And if you find something else, then you can let them know that you were just using this application where you found something, you saw this suspicious behavior, you found these vulnerabilities, you want to talk to the security team, and this is how dangerous it is, what may happen if this vulnerability remains. Now the next thing is, once you report it to the organization and suppose the organization responds in a very positive way that yes, these are our security team, talk to them and you discuss with them. You talk to them about the flaws, what are the problems, how can they mitigate it. What do? You do not disclose about it. You do not keep telling people that I found a bug about this. You wait for a while till the time they mitigate it. Once they mitigate it, is it okay for them if you write a blog, or you can talk about the bug that you found in that application? Once they give the permission, you can do it. Once and only they have mitigated their application and it is no more vulnerable to that suspicious activity that you found. So these are the steps that we do. Hence, be ethical, and that is why we call it ethical hacking. These are the steps that you follow for the same. So how do we start our career in there? So first of all, you need to have the skills, right? You cleared the basics. What kind of basics you need to be clear with? OS, operating system, networking, some programming language. It is very important to know some programming languages, especially for some security professional. You need to know, most of the time you perform some kind of hacking or some scanning from the Linux machines, but it is not necessary. You can use Windows as well. Whichever OS you are comfortable with, it is possible to do. Most of the time we use Linux, but it's fine. If you want to use Windows, it is possible. You have to find such kind of tools that run on Windows. So some programming languages like Python is very good because it can help you with exploit writing also. Now, once your basics are clear, you need to practice the skills that you have learned. So instead of practicing your skills on live applications, there are some intentionally vulnerable applications created, which you can install. You can install using Docker. You can install in your virtual machines. You need to know virtual machines as well. And you can solve those existing labs. Learn first how a vulnerability can be found manually. It is very important. Before starting with the tools, it is very important to understand how a vulnerability can be found manually. Once you find a vulnerability manually, how can it be exploited manually? There is a difference between vulnerability, finding a vulnerability, and exploiting a vulnerability. Finding a vulnerability means that suppose there is an application which is using a very older version. This can be considered as a vulnerability, but it does not necessarily mean that it is exploitable. Your application might be at risk because of the lower version that you're using, but it is not necessary that it will get hacked or it will get exploited. So, unless an application, a vulnerability in an application gets exploited, you cannot say that whether the application is hackable or not. Even if you are not able to find an exploit to that vulnerability, does not mean nobody else can. So once you find a vulnerability manually, you have to learn how to exploit it manually. Once you understand all these things, you can use the tools. How will these tools help you? You will understand how to use the tools at that time. You will understand how to use the tools to just ease the task. You will understand if the tool is open source, you yourself will be able to make some changes to make it work according to some different cases that you might get while finding a vulnerability. So once you understand all these things, it is very possible. If you want to find a vulnerability, once you have all found vulnerabilities, you have learned, you have done enough practice, now you want to go ahead, you can start with a live website whose permissions have already been provided in bug bounty programs. Or if you see an application, you take their permission, you make sure that you have the correct permission and you are checking the correct domains, the scope that they have already provided. Another thing, you can take a course, a very good course that talks about the approach. Why were we talking about this today? Because we have seen many programs and many individuals who try to make you, they try to teach the beginners how to hack a Facebook account or how to hack an Instagram account or just hack somebody's account, which is not ethical. And even if you want to hack those, it is not that possible to do it. You're trying to learn something in a very unethical way. It is not like you cannot hack it. There are people who are finding bugs related to these applications, right? But they're doing it ethically. So you need to know the correct way when you are trying to do all these things. Social engineering, malware, these are some other domains within the security field only, not just the technical related issues. So it is very important to take a course. You will get the payloads from the Google. You will definitely get all kinds of payloads, but you will have to learn how to draft a payload by yourself. Take a course that tells you about the approach, what your approach should be towards finding a bug. It's not that they have just given you an application and they have given you a group of payloads. You have to talk to them, you have to understand about all these things. Everything is available on the internet, but you need to know the correct guidance to it. This is where the difference comes into picture. So you can reach out to me from LinkedIn, Shruti-Rupa-Banerjee, and from Twitter, freak_crypt.
Thank you, Shruti, for a wonderful presentation. And I hope you all have clarified your doubts regarding this presentation.
Thank you.
So guys, I would like to inform you all that in our BAV organization, we provide trainings on various technologies it is the best opportunity to the people who want to build their career and working professionals also. For more information, visit our website shown on the screen. And this is to inform all the attendees that this webinar is conducted every month with a different topic. You can follow us for upcoming events through a mail ID, and we are available on social media sites like Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and please be free to contact us. So, thank you for attending our webinar, The Art of Hacking, brought to you by BAV, sponsored by Ray. Please provide your valuable feedback. People who are interested to be a speaker on our webinar, please mention in a feedback form. And also, please provide your suggestions, and you can reach us through our website and mail ID. So I would like to thank Ms. Shrutirupa Banerjee spending a precious time with us to grace this event, and I would like to thank all the amazing attendees taking time and making this webinar successful.
Thank you so much, Sarika. I hope I could help the audience a bit.
So thank you everyone. The time is up. We can leave now. Thank you, Shruti.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarika. Thank you, Shruti.
Thank you.
Thank you.